Kemi Adebayo stood in the marble lobby of Okonkwo Industries, her worn leather portfolio clutched against her chest like armor. The 26-year-old architectural graduate had been job hunting for 8 months, watching her savings dwindle as rejection letters piled up on her cramped Surulere apartment table. This interview was her last hope before she'd have to swallow her pride and return to her village in Osun State, admitting defeat to her father who had warned her that Lagos would chew her up and spit her out. Miss Adebayo. The receptionist's perfectly manicured nails clicked against her marble desk. Mr. Okonkwo will see you now. Kemi's heart hammered as she followed the woman through corridors lined with contemporary Nigerian art worth more than her annual rent. She'd researched Chijioke Okonkwo extensively, 32 years old, Harvard MBA, heir to one of Nigeria's largest construction empires. The man who opened the door to the corner office was nothing like his corporate headshot suggested. His expensive suit couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders, and despite his commanding presence, there was something almost desperate in his dark eyes as they met hers. He gestured for her to sit across from his imposing mahogany desk, the Lagos skyline stretching endlessly behind him through floor-to-ceiling windows. Miss Adebayo, Chijioke began, his voice carrying the crisp accent of someone educated abroad but still distinctly Nigerian. Your portfolio is impressive, but I have to be honest, this isn't about architecture. Kemi's stomach dropped. I don't understand. He stood abruptly, running a hand through his closely cropped hair. My grandmother is dying. The words came out raw, unfiltered. She has maybe 6 months, and she's made it clear that my inheritance, controlling shares in this company, depends on one thing. Marriage. Mr. Okonkwo, I'm not sure why you're telling me this, because I need a fiancé. Temporarily. He turned to face her, and she saw the vulnerability he was trying to hide behind his CEO facade. My family expects me to bring someone home for my grandmother's 80th birthday next month. Someone suitable. Someone they'll believe I'm serious about marrying. Kemi's mouth fell open. You want me to pretend to be your fiancé? 6 months. That's all. My grandmother gets to see me settled before she passes, my inheritance is secured, and you. He named a figure that made Kemi's vision blur. It was more money than she'd see in 5 years at any architecture firm that would actually hire her. Why me? She whispered. Because you're not part of my world. No ulterior motives, no complications. And, his expression softened slightly, because you look like you need this as much as I do. Pride warred with desperation in Kemi's chest. This man was offering her a lifeline, but at what cost? This is insane. Probably. But I'm running out of options, and from what I can tell, so are you. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, Kemi found herself nodding. 3 weeks later, she stood in the driveway of the Okonkwo family compound in Ikoyi, wearing a designer dress that cost more than her monthly rent. Chijioke had been thorough, coaching her on family dynamics, his preferences, their fabricated love story. They'd met during her consultation on his new office building, bonded over their shared love of sustainable architecture and Fela Kuti's music. Remember, he murmured as they approached the front door, my grandmother sees everything. She raised me after my parents died, and she can smell a lie from across Lagos State. The woman who embraced Chijioke at the door was tiny but formidable, her silver hair wrapped in an elegant gele, her eyes sharp as they assessed Kemi. So this is the girl who has captured my grandson's heart. Mama, this is Kemi, Chijioke said, his hand warm and steadying on Kemi's lower back. Welcome, my daughter, the elderly woman said, pulling Kemi into a surprising embrace. I am Mama Chinua. Come, let me look at you properly. What followed was perhaps the most intense scrutiny of Kemi's life. Mama Chinyo asked about her family, her education, her dreams. But instead of the interrogation Kemi had expected, it felt like genuine interest. The old woman shared stories of her own youth, her struggles building the family business alongside her late husband, her pride in Chijioke's achievements. He works too much, Mama Chinyo confided as they sat on the expansive terrace overlooking the lagoon. Always has. I worry he will wake up one day and realize he has built an empire but forgotten to build a life. Kemi found herself drawn into the family's warmth despite herself. Chijioke's cousin Adana welcomed her like a sister, insisting on taking her shopping and sharing embarrassing childhood stories about Chijioke. His uncle Emeka, a jovial man with an infectious laugh, appointed himself her personal tour guide through Lagos's hidden gems. But it was watching Chijioke with his grandmother that undid her. The powerful CEO disappeared, replaced by a devoted grandson who listened to her stories with infinite patience, helped her with her evening medications, and held her frail hands as she dozed in her favorite chair. This wasn't the cold, calculating businessman she'd expected. This was a man shaped by love and loss, carrying the weight of family expectations while desperately trying to honor the woman who had raised him. 2 months into their charade, Kemi realized she wasn't pretending anymore. It happened gradually, the way his eyes sought hers across crowded rooms, how he genuinely laughed at her terrible jokes, the protective way he guided her through Lagos traffic on their stage date nights. Their conversations evolved from rehearsed scripts to real connection. He told her about his loneliness at the top of his empire, his fear of never being loved for more than his money. She shared her dreams of designing sustainable housing for Lagos's growing population, her struggles with her father's expectations, her own deep loneliness in the sprawling city. "This is dangerous," she whispered one evening as they sat in his car after another family dinner, her heart racing from the way he'd looked at her when she'd laughed at one of Uncle Emeka's stories. "I know," he said quietly, not denying what was happening between them. "Your grandmother asked me about wedding plans today." "Real plans? What did you tell her?" "That I wanted a small ceremony. Traditional but intimate." The lie came so easily because it wasn't entirely a lie. If she were really planning to marry this man, that's exactly what she'd want. Chijioke turned to her then, his expression tortured. "Kemi, don't," she said, pressing her fingers to his lips. "Don't say anything we can't take back." But it was already too late. They both knew it. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday evening. Kemi was working late in the small office Chijioke had given her at the company, legitimizing her presence while giving her meaningful work on affordable housing projects. She looked up to find Mama Chinyo standing in her doorway, leaning heavily on her walking stick. "Mama, what are you doing here so late?" Kemi rushed to her side. "I wanted to see where my grandson found you," the old woman said, settling into the chair across from Kemi's desk. She looked around at the architectural drawings and sustainability reports covering every surface. "He told me you were passionate about your work, but this..." She gestured at a scale model of low-cost housing units. "This is the work of someone who cares about more than money. Architecture is about creating spaces where people can build lives," Kemi said softly. Mama Chinyo studied her with those penetrating eyes. "And what kind of life are you building with my grandson?" The question hung in the air like a judgment. Kemi's carefully constructed facade crumbled. "Mama, You love him," the old woman said simply. "And he loves you. I can see it in how he looks at you, how he's changed since you came into his life. But there's something else. Fear. Sadness. What are you both afraid of, my daughter?" Tears Kemi had been holding back for months finally spilled over. "We are not real," she whispered. "This engagement, it's not, he hired me. To pretend. For your birthday, for the inheritance. I'm not who you think I am. She expected anger, disappointment, betrayal. Instead, Mama Chinyo reached across the desk and took her hands. Child, do you think I lived this long without learning to recognize real love when I see it? Do you think a woman who built a business empire doesn't understand the difference between performance and truth? You knew. I suspected from the beginning. My grandson is many things, but a good actor is not one of them. And you, my dear, are far too genuine to be some gold digger playing a part. Mama Chinyo's grip tightened. But what started as pretense has become something real, hasn't it? It doesn't matter, Kemi said, wiping her eyes. He'll never believe I really love him, not after how this started. And I can't stay knowing I'm living a lie with your family. Then don't lie anymore, Mama Chinyo said firmly. Tell him the truth. All of it. That night, Kemi packed her few belongings and left the luxury apartment Chijioke had arranged for her. She left behind the designer clothes, the jewelry, the life that had never really been hers. But she couldn't leave without saying goodbye. She found Chijioke in his office at midnight, staring out at the city lights. He turned when she entered, and she saw her own heartbreak reflected in his eyes. I know, he said simply. Mama told me about your conversation. I'm sorry, Kemi whispered. For everything. For lying to your family, for taking your money under false pretenses, for making me fall in love with you. His voice was raw with emotion. Because that's what you're really apologizing for, isn't it? For making this real when it was supposed to be just business. Chijioke, I've been sitting here all night trying to figure out when I stopped pretending. Was it when you argued with my uncle about sustainable development over dinner? When you spent 3 hours teaching Mama how to video call her sister in Abuja? Or maybe it was when you held my hand during her last hospital visit and I realized I couldn't imagine facing that loss without you. It doesn't matter when, Kemi said, her heart breaking with every word. What matters is that your grandmother deserves honesty, and so do you. I won't be the lie that helps you inherit your birthright. What if I don't want the inheritance without you? The question stopped her cold. What if I've realized that building an empire means nothing if you have no one to share it with? Don't say that. Don't throw away everything your grandmother worked for because I found something worth more. He crossed the room, stopping just close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body. Kemi, what we have now, what we've built together these past months, it's not fake anymore. Maybe it started that way, but somewhere along the line, you became the most real thing in my life. I'm a fraud, she whispered. I've been lying to everyone, including myself. Then let's stop lying. He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away her tears. Let's start over. No contracts, no pretense, no family pressure. Just us, figuring out if what we feel is real enough to build a life on. And the inheritance will work itself out. Mama's smarter than both of us combined, she'll find a way to make this right. But Kemi, I need you to know something. Even if there was no inheritance, no family pressure, no dying grandmother's wish, I would still choose you. Every day, for the rest of my life, I would choose you. When he kissed her, it tasted like truth and new beginnings and the courage to bet everything on love. Outside, Lagos sparkled with millions of lights, each one representing a life, a dream, a story unfolding. And in that moment, holding each other in the corner office high above the city they both loved, Kemi and Chijioke began writing their own story, one that started with deception but would be built on the solid foundation of truth, love, and the radical act of choosing each other against all odds. 6 months later, they stood before friends and family in a small ceremony in Mama Chinu's garden, exchanging vows they had written themselves. The old woman sat in the front row, beaming with satisfaction and wearing the expression of someone whose plan had worked perfectly. Because sometimes the best inheritances aren't money or property or business empires, sometimes they're the wisdom to recognize love when it finds you, even when it arrives wearing the mask of necessity and pretense, and the courage to fight for it once you do.